Welcome to The More Perfect Union, the podcast that offers real debate without the hate. I'm Rebekah Kushmiter, and this week I am joined by
DJ McGuire, who's beginning to think the admission of Ohio into the Union was not a good plan, from Hampton Roads, Virginia.
And
Greg Matuzak, proud resident of Ohio and agreeer of DJ, common sense Democrat, or common sense liberal, excuse me. And this is the week that I actually believe that Hunter Biden should be impeached and struck from public office. So, yeah.
All right, Kevin Kelton is not with us this evening. He is celebrating his lovely wife's birthday. Happy birthday, Jess. But we may be joined later by special guest George Santos, sharing a message for all of you via Cameo. That's a joke. None of us are spending money on George Santos's Cameo account. If he wants to get Botox, he can get a job and work for it like the rest of us do. Anyway, so it's been a week. Greg, we haven't seen you in a couple of weeks, and a lot has been going on. If you've been watching the news, we've had a mass exodus in the House of Representatives, or as DJ prefers to call it,
the Dacha of Representatives.
Yes, because DJ believes that it is a fully subsidized subsidiary of the Kremlin, and he might not be wrong. So this week we saw McCarthy deciding to leave effective the end of the year, McHenry deciding to leave effective the end of his term, and Mike Johnson is not making an exodus, but he does apparently think he's Moses. Have you guys been following that story?
All three of those check out. All three of those solid. solid. Good vibe on that. And especially the Johnson one. I think if anyone's going to lead us to the promised land, it's Mike Johnson, a man who has no bank account. Yeah, I think he's the one.
Has he defined what he believes the promised land to be?
That's the scary part. I assume something Handmaiden tale, something Gillian. I would assume. So yeah, super scary. I think the exact numbers. I think 37 representatives and was it 7 senators have said that they're going to be leaving at least by the end of this term. So this next year's huge. And it's slightly larger than your average year. It's not like a wave, but it's more than, according to Ballotopedia. Oh, I said that right. It's more than your average, but it's not like double or triple numbers. But a lot of them, I think it's more the reasoning people are leaving than just, and especially like with McCarthy, who's leaving now.
Yeah, I mean, well, with McCarthy, what we can safely assume is that some firm offered him a lobbying contract. It's probably got a lot of zeros attached to his annual retainer, and he would like to begin his cooling off period as soon as possible so that he can start collecting those big hourly fees. That's my assumption. That's what John Boehner did.
I agree with you with McCarthy. I think there is something to be said for like zeros and money, stacks upon stacks. But I think there's also Trey Gowdy was talking about this the other day on Fox. There's a frustration level. People actually, and yes, on both sides, go to Congress to accomplish something, and no one's accomplishing anything. They get there, they're told, like, look, you want to pass a bill, you're not going to pass a bill. You're not going to pass a bill this year. You're not going to pass a bill next year. And maybe in 4 years, you may be able to put your name on something that is nothing even similar to the bill that you want to pass. And they're tired of the gridlock. They're tired of the animosity. They're tired of, the fights, the names.
Well, the death threats, having to worry about your safety, worry about your family's safety.
Yeah, that's not cool.
Most, not all, but most of the Democrats who are retiring are running for different offices. Mm-hmm. They're either looking to move up to the U.S. Senate, run for governor. Dean Phillips wants to fly into the nearest mountain, running for president. But the overwhelming, The Republicans who are leaving are just flat out leaving. Most of them are just going out the door and not coming back. And what I think that says is it speaks to, and we talk about dysfunction in politics and dysfunction in the House, dysfunction in the Senate. But the reality is the Republican Party is far more dysfunctional than the Democratic Party is. The Democratic Party, for all of its faults, knows what it wants to do, has an idea of how to get there, and they simply just have never had the numbers to do it. They don't have the votes to do it. They're a minority in the House. They're a slim minority in the Senate. The Republican Party, outside of making sure Daddy Vladdy is happy, have absolutely no idea what they want to do. So when you are a Republican congressman coming into Washington and you want to do something, you have to make sure that all of your colleagues agree with you, because the one thing you cannot do ever is work with a Democrat in the House of Representatives to get support anymore. That is now that is the new third rail for Republican politicians, cooperating with Democrats.
And considering they were the party that screamed about bipartisanship for so many years, that's something.
Well, that was a generation ago.
Mitt Romney said this morning that the party that he ran for president is not the same party that it is today.
It's not.
He's like,
I was in that Republican Party.
You were in that party. Right.
I'm now on the other side.
And he's like the drastic changes it's almost unrecognizable. And I think there are a lot of people who are retiring also because of those changes inside the Republican Party.
Well, speaking of things that will make your blood boil and may potentially change the political fundraising environment for the 2024 election, we have the state of Texas rearing its ugly head this weekend. There's a woman named Kate Cox who has a completely non-viable pregnancy, and she has asked for an exception to Texas's abortion laws to terminate the pregnancy, because it's all pregnancies put you at risk. This is putting her at potential risk of injury to herself and damage to her uterus that would prevent her from having future children. She already has 2 children. She and her husband do want more children. And a judge in Texas had granted her the right to terminate this completely non-viable pregnancy. And I'll talk a little bit about the medical conditions at play, because I read up on this today. And then Ken Paxton, American hero, filed for a stay in the Texas Supreme Court, and it was granted. So here's this woman who's like 19 weeks and 5 days pregnant with a pregnancy that she would very much like to terminate because it is a non-viable pregnancy. And lawyers are telling her that she can't.
Yeah. Additionally, Ken Paxton had sent a letter as soon as the first ruling came out to all healthcare practitioners saying that they would be prosecuted under the full extent if they did follow the ruling. And
the ruling offering permission.
Offering permission. And he was like, look, this is going to be overturned. If you go through with this, we will somehow come back and get you your license, your kid's license. You will never practice medicine again. So don't even go through with this. I'm going to get so don't even try. Which, I mean, what an asshole. These are horrible human beings.
Well, no, the wording in his order was saying something like, we need to preserve the life of the child, however long that life is going to be. And like I say, I read the initial suit that detailed the medical findings, the prenatal findings. The child, I believe it's a girl, has trisomy 18, which is a chromosomal disorder, which has a very high fatality rate. Many children with this disorder are never born at all. They die in the womb. Many are stillborn, and many die within the first year of their lives. There are exceptions, and as medical science learns more, lives are more possible. This child, in addition to having this fetus, really, at 19 weeks, this is not a viable pregnancy at this point, or it would not be, not at the point of viability. Also has neural tube defects, meaning the main spinal nerve column is compromised. It has cardiac defects. She has a significant protrusion from her abdomen, which is likely an umbilical hernia, club feet, restricted growth, and problems with the size of her skull. This is not a baby that will be able to take more than a few breaths. This is not a child who is going to have one of those miracle survivability stories. This is a pregnancy that is going to end in a tragedy. And Ken Paxton to be saying we need to preserve this life at all costs is being ghoulish, because this is a life that will either end potentially during labor and delivery, or through suffocation or stroke or some sort of cardiac event immediately after. And what is he really preserving here?
But Rebekah, you need to understand, this is a white baby that would be born in Texas, not a brown child who is trying to get into the country via the Rio Grande, who of course should be forced to drown.
Right. Now that it's all much clearer to me now, DJ. Thank you.
No trouble at all. This is what I do. It's why I'm here.
It all comes into focus now. Thank you.
Yeah. This cases like this are the reasons why abortions are up since Dobbs was decided and not down. Because things like this, and this is not the first time that we've had this. It's just the first time it sort of pierced the zeitgeist. It became nationally known. Outside of Ohio. But these kinds of cases, these kinds of stories, these kinds of madcap nonsense is what is scaring women, trans men, and non-binaries out of pregnancies, because they don't want the additional risks that come with them. And so there are children that would have been born in a pre-Dobbs environment who are being aborted now because this movement has, and I've said it before and I'm saying it again, this movement is literally scaring the lives out of women, trans men, and non-binaries. And this is just another example of this.
And to make this even more horrific, in the event that Ms. Cox has to continue to carry this pregnancy and undergoes some sort of labor and delivery or a induction or cesarean section, whatever method her doctors decide is safest for her, and she gives birth to a terminally ill child, all of the medical costs of that high-risk birth, which will involve additional medical personnel to a low-risk birth, and the costs of whatever care the neonate will need in the moments or hours or days that she survives, Ms. Cox and her husband will be responsible for those costs along with their insurance company. This is something they've been given choices. This would be an enormous amount of medical expenditure, that, not to mention a use of medical resources that is not necessary. And I don't think Ken Paxton is offering to pick up the tab. But, no. NICU stays and births like this run to the tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars even. And I'm certain that they'll have a DNR order, which will simplify things a little bit. But even so, imagine going through all of this and then getting a bill for whatever your insurance didn't pick up.
Oh, geez.
And knowing that could have been avoided.
Right.
It's ghoulish on so many levels. And I know talking about money is awful and craven, but it is a factor. That's another problem with the American medical system, is if you are faced with potentially giving birth to a disabled child, you will not have services. You will not have assistance. And that breaks families.
Right. If you live in a 4-story walk up, all of a sudden you have to move. If you have a child who might need a lift or something, it's tough.
Well, if you have a child that needs round the clock nursing care because it has breathing issues, if you have a child who well, has cognitive disabilities that he'll never be able to live fully independently. There's nothing available once they reach the age of 18, and suddenly you're the parent of an adult who isn't fully an adult, and that you try to provide for a future for that person when you've already spent all your money on special schools because the public schools didn't have the right kind of services either. It's just, we do so badly at actually protecting children in this country. And then brag that we're pro-life because we're forcing Kate Cox to continue a pregnancy.
Yeah. Terrible.
I think there's a lack of recognition at how frayed American local communities are, or were, or always was. I think there's always been a sense in the United States that local communities can always come together and fill the gap that's left by whatever this or that government program that doesn't do what it's supposed to do, or that doesn't do it, or whatever the heck it is. Part of the American myth is that we don't need government to do that. We do that ourselves. That just isn't true anymore. And we can debate whether it was ever true, but it isn't true now. We don't define communities by geographic locality anymore. We define communities virtually via social networks. And that makes it a lot harder for communities like that are not able to do the things that geographic local communities might have done in the past to make up for where government stops helping people. And I think we have to recognize that the society we have now, we have to look at communities differently, which means we also would have to look at government a little differently.
Well, but even in the event of, when it's a one-time situation, we need to raise whatever to, do renovations on the house to accommodate a disability. Communities are well positioned to do that. That's when, you get your local contractor donating their services or materials or, whatever, and you can come together and get the one thing done that's got a start and an end. When you're talking about lifelong care or long-term care of any kind, communities are not positioned to provide that. Not for free.
Yeah.
You can do a sign up genius to, do a meal train for 3 weeks while someone's recovering from surgery, but to do it for 18 years, that's a lot to ask.
Yeah. In 2011, 2011, yeah, I guess so. 2011, 2012. That's my year. Tonight, John Kasich became governor of Ohio, and one of his,
he's my favorite. I love him almost as much as you do, Greg.
I hate that guy. But one of the things he did was he said, "Look, we're going to balance the budget because that's the most important thing."
And he said that in Congress. Well,
yeah, right. But he cut police force. He cut almost state funding, like, to the bone. And he cut police, he cut fire, he cut hospital, he cut school, he cut everything. And his response to a lot of it was, don't worry, communities will come together, church groups will feed the people who we're not feeding anymore, and don't worry because that's what small towns do. Ohio, round on the end, high in the middle. And it didn't really happen. It wasn't like that. It was like DJ said, my community that I play video games with is mostly a bunch of Canadian guys who swear way too much to make me comfortable. And they're awesome. But it's and right now my political community is y'all, our loyal listeners and fans. And then you two, Kevin, Joe, and the rest of our MPU family. I'm talking about you, Sally.
But Sally can't show up at your house with dinner because Sally lives 3,000 miles away.
Exactly. And it's not the same. It's and once again, John Kasich's an asshole.
I read a meme this week. It was like, hey, did you hear the story about the family that couldn't afford a $20,000 electrical wheelchair for their disabled son? So a high school robotics team came together and burned their insurance company's headquarters down. Because, you hear these heartwarming stories all the time, like, then the robotics team built the wheelchair. No, the robotics team, torches and pitchforks, folks. Get her done.
I know that's probably not true.
It's not true. It was a meme. It was meant to be funny.
It's not true. But seeing as my youngest child is on the robotics team, that's
what you need. We need Generation Z. Like, get your robotic skills and your anarchist mindset. Let's do it.
All right. As a legal disclaimer, the MPU podcaster do not endorse robotics teams running wild in the street and going after any fiduciary company or insurance group. Because as we know,
because arson is illegal.
Right.
And none of us want to end up in prison. Although it takes us to our next topic. If we were to be a dictator, if any one of us were to get to be a dictator for just one day, apart from obviously pardoning the high school robotics team that burns down the insurance company, what would we do? What would you do with the power to be a dictator for just one day? And you can't say, make myself dictator for life, because that's Donald Trump's answer. So,
1,000 wishes?
Right. As dictator for a day, what would you do? And you are allowed to promote your albums here.
Let DJ go first, because I'm going to say something horrible, and then afterwards go, no, I want what DJ did. So
okay. All right. Well, yeah. In that case, first, yes, I would mandate that everyone buy at least one full copy of my discography at djmcguire1.bandcamp.com. And before I get jailed for that, I would remove any and all economic obstacles to the creation of nuclear power plants, and I would put in place. I'd basically order a nuclear power plant in every state in the union, and if I could, I'd order one in every county in the union. I would increase the size of the House of Representatives to 1,300, and I would put in place a law that says the House of Representatives can never have fewer than 30,000 constituents per representative from the next redistricting on, which would bump it up to about 10,000, because it needs to be that big. And I would eliminate the Electoral College, because the notion of rural virtue behind it has been exposed as thoroughly wrong. And I would deport the entire Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia.
Okay, great. That DJ had an extensive list.
Yeah, I was going to say mine's probably not as large. I would put back the Electoral College that DJ just got rid of, because huge fan. I would redistrict every congressional. I would make it federal. I would say, look, you bozos can't handle redistricting, and I'm sick of the gerrymandering. I'd make it a nonpartisan group full of mathematicians and nerds and whatnot. And, the state Congress and Senate and governor would have no say on it. It would just be nerds. I would take that robotics team that burned it. I would put them in NASA.
The imaginary robotics team making imaginary fires.
See what else they could burn down. Let's see. I would punch Mike Love from the Beach Boys twice. Oh, I hate that guy.
Okay.
Just one of the worst human beings. Not only about Kokomo, because that's the worst song, but he's just terrible human being. If I could get away with it, and not that I would make punch. Oh, speaking of punching, I would make punching a Nazi legal. And literally it would, every time you'd go into court, it would be like, so you assaulted this man, but he's a Nazi. And the attorney'd say, are you a Nazi, sir? He goes, well, yeah, card carrying. They gave us these cards. And he goes, looks like you're off the hook. bailiff, punch him on the way out. That's how that would go. Boy, I'm pretty rough today. This is what happens.
I see, I'm like, I would.
Well, you know why? Christmas carols. I've been playing Christmas carols.
Christmas carols, so it's put you in the Christmas spirit.
No, I hate them so much. I might outlaw those too.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
I might,
except for the ones written by Jews.
Yeah, those are the good ones. I will say that.
I mean,
but no, I think they do bring out the worst in me, an ugly side of me. Okay, what about yourself? What would you do as dictator?
Well, universal basic income to start with.
See, now I feel shitty.
And then subsidized childcare, because no other social programs work without childcare. Because if you can't safely drop your kids off somewhere, can't really do anything else. And I would extend the public school system to like a 2-year community college-esque program that would be optional, almost like a sixth form kind of thing in Britain. So you could get the equivalent of an associate's degree completely for free as part of the public school system. And the public option for health insurance, like a Medicare buy-in, although I might make it a TRICARE buy-in, because I think TRICARE might be more comprehensive than Medicare in a lot of ways. And I like the Nazi punching thing. I think I'm going to steal that. And maybe I would make it legal to punch apartheid-era South African Nepo babies who start or buy tech firms.
Don't be specific, because that sounds like you're targeting.
You're right. No, I'm absolutely not targeting the owner of Twitter. You could punch a billionaire.
Oh, I don't know. I think there are good billionaires. It's like witches from Wizard of Oz. They're good.
True. Yeah. But like if you found a shitty billionaire and punched him, probably be okay. Like, you don't want to punch Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, because she's just giving money away hand over fist. She's awesome. But like, there's some other billionaires out there who might need a good punching. They might be Nazis.
You think, yeah, we could just make a Venn diagram, like billionaire Nazis, automatic punch. I actually got into a discussion with someone about like, violence is the worst thing and you should never. I was like, except for Nazis. And they were like, no, I wouldn't. But this is totally wrong. You should always use your words and we should reason. I was like, right. I agree completely, except for Nazis. And they're like, I can't tell if you're joking. And I'm like, oh, I'm not.
No, we're not joking.
We're not joking. Nazis are the worst. They, I was like, and we fought a world war over this. I mean, this is the thing that we should really draw the line on the sand. And, when you see a Nazi, punch a Nazi.
Right. And speaking of solving anti-Semitism and the problems of Nazis, the U.S. House of Representatives decided that the best way to manage anti-Semitism and totally solve the problem of thousands of years of it was to convince the president of the University of Pennsylvania to quit her job.
Oh, so we can go home? It's done? We solved it?
I guess. Yeah, no, I guess that solved anti-Semitism. All right, DJ, we skipped ahead to the anti-Semitism portion of our podcast tonight. And so do you agree that having the president of Penn step down solves anti-Semitism now and for all time?
No, but I think it is more beneficial than most people think it is, and here's why.
Oh,
I mentioned this last week. At least I think I did, that the entire intersectional project is looking like it has an exception for Jews. And for those of us who have been watching campus administration behavior and how campus administrations have basically treated free speech as a luxury when certain minority groups were expressing offense at what was being spoken, to have them all suddenly come to Congress and hem and haw and go through the gymnastics they went through, when we all know they would have never done anything similar if the question had been if someone called for genocide against all Africans, if someone had called for genocide against all Asians, all Chinese, all from the Indian subcontinent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No one has to assume the Republicans did any of this in good faith, because of course they didn't. But that doesn't mean that a very serious double standard wasn't exposed this week. And I think the resignation of the Penn president is a sign that this double standard is no longer sustainable. And that, at least, is a good thing.
Well, another thing to talk about is if we are demanding the resignation of individuals at the helm of organizations that are permitting anti-Semitic speech en masse, do we need to be looking closely at the CEOs of social media companies? Because, I mean, let's, and, okay, we're going to make the argument. Well, these schools get government funding. Yeah, they do. And while Twitter does not, SpaceX does.
We went through this a couple of years ago about whether if someone puts something on Facebook, will Facebook be liable for it? And
but this isn't a Section 230 argument. The question is, can Elon Musk be shamed into doing the right thing? And the answer
right,
is no.
And that's where that's what I was going with. The answer is no.
But there's no reason not to try. Right. Okay, there are people who are upset at what these university presidents did. They said so. They said this was unacceptable, and one of them has chosen to leave, and another one has chosen to apologize. We all know Elon Musk is not going to react the same way.
No.
That doesn't mean we shouldn't stop calling him the little piece of shit that he is. You just keep doing it.
Well, but I also think that there comes a point where it is not unreasonable for Congress to call him to testify or for, you, DJ, Mr. Military Contract Dude, to be able to say, we need to review your contracts in light of the fact that you appear to be suborning anti-Semitism. And if you want to continue to have these contracts, you might need to fix the terms of service on some of your businesses.
Well, I have never stopped reminding anybody that Elon Musk did not get his riches because he was a smart guy. He got his riches because of industrial policy. This man is a creature of government. Mm-hmm. So it should not, I'm certainly not going to object to a congressional committee hauling Elon Musk over the coals over this kind of stuff. I would like to know how he can be sure that the contracts he does have with the military aren't poisoned by his obvious affinity for Vladimir Putin. So I have no problem with sticking him in front of a congressional committee for 12 hours. Okay, hey, that's great. Go ahead and do that. The fact that that is not being done, while tragic and while wrong, does not mean that those university presidents don't have some things to answer for.
I mean, university presidents they are a species of creature that exists to perpetuate the university. They exist to raise money to continue to have a university. They have no ability to make a definitive statement because they're used to saying whatever non-committal thing they can to not offend the donor they're trying to not offend. And that's what they did in Congress, and they should have been smarter.
No, they tried to walk a tight line of we don't want to upset everybody, and they ended up upsetting everybody.
Yeah, right. No, that's what they were.
Did.
They were talking to Congress and the American people as if they were donors that they were trying not to upset. And what they should have said is, no, anti-Semitism really sucks, and we're looking into this. Like they could have just gone with, we're looking into this, and that would have been better than what they did say.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
They could have formed a committee, a task force, even. But we're probably gonna have to form a task force soon, to take care of DJ's mental health, because the Senate has once again blocked a package of foreign aid. This one to offer assistance to both Israel and Ukraine. And in response, Zelensky is coming to the United States, I believe, tomorrow. And I just assumed he was coming to put your head back together after it explodes, DJ.
No, he is not coming down here. He has far more important things to do than to
He's going
worry
to the
about
White
my
House. I don't
well-being.
think he's going to the Hill, though.
Yeah. He is meeting with some senators, and he is meeting with Speaker Johnson. So
Oh,
at least
good.
that's
Speaker Johnson
wow.
can part the seas and make it all.
Well, that's
whatever.
going to be fruitful.
But I think I have to say, those of you who may have noticed that since I have come back, I have generally avoided drinking for this podcast, and I got to tell you, it was very hard to hold to that this week. But I did. There are a lot of Republicans who are simply negotiating in bad faith. They say, "Oh, we want something done for the border," but they keep moving the goalposts on what that is because they really don't want anything done at all. What they're hoping for is that they can find some way, most Republicans on this, they can find some way to not actually aid Ukraine, but not actually take the blame for not aiding Ukraine. I don't necessarily think this is going to work, but I'm not sure how much they really care. There are some Republicans who are simply just trying to keep their caucus together and who are putting party over country, and those people are fools. And then there's J.D. Vance, who's literally calling
back in Ohio. This Greg State is having a bad podcast.
God damn it!
Who is literally calling for Ukraine to surrender and saying that, well, we should just tell Vladimir Putin that aggression pays because he hates gay people as much as I do. He didn't actually say that part, but we all know it's true.
Right.
So, yes, I am upset by this. I don't know how many Republicans are all in on the bad faith argument. How many Republicans would actually take something on the border? And on top of that, the problem with the border is not what everyone thinks it is. The problem with the border is that we are a country that desperately needs more people and doesn't want to admit that to itself. Because if we did, we would look at the border entirely differently. Mm-hmm. We would recognize that a secure border doesn't mean keep everybody out. It means let people come in through secure channels, through secure ports of entry, so that the rest of the border can be patrolled to stop bad stuff from being smuggled in.
Oh, you've got the labor shortage all wrong. Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted about it. She said that if we hadn't aborted however many millions of people since 1973, we would have more air traffic controllers.
Oh my God!
Face palming now.
She can't be. Of course. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't just say air traffic controllers. She also mentioned cops.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah. Well, and then someone on Twitter was like, "Yeah, man, I was waiting. I had a 45-minute wait at Outback Steakhouse, and I was thinking, man, if we had just let more wait staff be born." I'd be eating a bloomin' onion right now.
I would remind everyone, abortions are up since the Dobbs decision, not down. I'm going to keep saying that whenever this thing comes up.
We're all on the same page. I just, when we're talking about labor shortages, I felt that it was important to share the worst ideas.
I got you.
To come out of Twitter.
Yeah, I'm going to tie
that argument has now devolved into we can win the Daytona 500 by putting the car in reverse.
I'm going to tie what you said earlier to what you just said kind of together. A lot of the Republican Party doesn't want to accomplish anything, and they say they do, but they don't. And the border security bill is one of them. Right now, 50, 60, 80% of them are running on the fact that it's lawless down there. 4,000 to 5,000 people a day. What was the one I heard? The population of Pennsylvania is coming through yearly in our southern border. I mean, it was just crazy. These ridiculous numbers. All right. And if we actually did send aid, send money, and there was a decrease, they're not going to be able to run on that next year. Okay. And especially if they voted on it. Additionally, but like you said, that's a double-edged sword, because if they got that, then the Ukraine is the other thing they want to run on, or don't. They're happy just complaining. They just want to complain.
And they certainly are not. And this is why I think they're negotiating bad faith, because if Joe Biden and Mitch McConnell actually would come together and make this deal, which I still think is possible, just not likely.
Sure.
That would give the Republican Party responsibility for what happens at the border, which none of them actually want. That's, they understand that the worst Greek tragedies are from people who actually get what they're asking for. And so they don't actually want what they're asking for because they don't want the responsibility that comes with actually winning a political argument. As we said, they don't really want to do anything. That's why I fear this is all about bad faith. That's why I think if Biden and McConnell actually came together and presented a deal, I still think it would fall apart in the House because I think a lot of Democrats would be upset, certainly by the border policies, and there would be enough Republicans to say, well, I just actually don't want any aid for Ukraine anyway, and I'm shooting this thing down.
Well, it's definitely not going to come together in the House because they're adjourning on Thursday.
Yeah.
And they won't be back until the new year. So there is not going to be an aid package in calendar 2023. That's my best guess. Although Biden he circumvented Congress and is, found a way to sell weapons to Israel. I think I like a headline flashed by and I remember thinking, oh, I bet DJ would know what this means.
Didn't Reagan get in trouble for that?
No, that's not what we're talking about. This is, yeah, there are various governmental vehicles, policy vehicles that make it much easier to arm Israel because Congress doesn't mind if the presidency goes ahead and does that. Congress does mind, or certain Republicans do mind, about Ukraine, and what they're hoping for is that Ukraine loses the war. Honestly, I honestly think a lot of them are just hoping Ukraine loses the war and sues for peace before they come back in January, and they can pretend like they were right all along.
That's shitty.
It is. And if it weren't for the fact that next election is going to be about whether we remain an independent country or become a Russian colony ourselves, I would be yelling a lot more about it. But I have to save my energy too.
Oh. Well, the GOP, or at least some segment of the GOP, had a debate this week. There were 4 people on the stage. Did any of you guys watch it?
I did.
Oh, good. Thank you, Greg. Because I was writing an article that night about laser hair removal for armpit hair, which is similar to watching Chris Christie talk, but not not probably, the full experience.
It probably doesn't smell as bad. But it was your typical thing. You can ask me what kind of nachos I made in just a moment.
Oh yeah, I want to know.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah, no, had.
Did you have what sort of nachos do you have?
So I always make debate nachos.
Yeah.
So this one I made. It was my usual nachos cheese, but I put olives on it. Why? Because I love olive. Wait, how do I say that? I love to watch these guys tear each other apart.
Tear each other into pieces. Jesus Christ, this will be fun. Da 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 da. Sorry.
So the best part of the debate was the commercials. I don't know if you guys saw, TikTok ran commercials the entire night. About
were they saying like, we are the Chinese Communist Party coming to infiltrate your teens?
Yeah, they were pretty much, but they were like, hey, using TikTok, I helped an elderly man get a wheelchair from this robotics group. I'm not kidding about that, for the record. That's where I thought you got that. And one person talked about how they use TikTok to help veterans in need. I mean, it was all these like, oh my gosh, is this what TikTok's all about? It's not anti-Semitic college students, popping off or just terribleness. This is and dance moves. This is great. But it was just great. Besides that, the debate was just another, Chris Christie attacking Trump, everyone else attacking Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley going, oh, well, I'm not going to talk about that. You guys are obviously just jealous of me. There are no winners.
I heard that clip. She said they were just jealous.
They were just jealous.
She was like Amy Poehler in Mean Girls.
Yep. Overall, there was only one winner again. There was an obvious winner.
It was
Donald
me writing
Trump.
about armpit hair.
It was you writing about armpit hair. It was Donald Trump again for not being there. I mean, the other three besides Christie wouldn't even say a bad thing about him. At one point, Nikki Haley did say that Trump added to the deficit, like 7 trillion, I think. Versus and they was like, look, we have to admit that, we have to own it and then move on. Things happen. Gosh.
Sometimes you run up a deficit.
Sometimes you
when
run
you're
up
a
a
Republican.
deficit. You wake up the next morning and you go, what did I do last night? Oh my gosh. Did I kill a hooker? Did I run up a deficit? Did I start a land war? I don't know. And so with that in mind, you guys didn't miss much. I'm sure you saw all the highlights on, TikTok.
I'm huge on TikTok. Everybody loves me there. DJ's dance moves on TikTok are exceptional.
Honestly, the question for me regarding Haley and Christie, for that matter, and I know the answer. The question is when both of them lose, because both of them will, are they prepared to say, you know what? I've got a lot of disagreements with President Biden, but it's either him or Russian colonization, so I've got to vote for him. I don't think either of them will do that. I don't even think Chris Christie will do that. I know Nikki Haley will.
No.
And the question is, JV Last had a good piece on this on the Bulwark this last week. The question is Haley actually opposing Trump, or is she simply creating a permission structure for anti-Trump Republicans to come home and vote for him in November? And I'm afraid it's the latter.
I think she's holding out the hope that he will be forced out of the race due to his legal jeopardy. I think she is hoping that either he cuts a deal with Jack Smith to avoid jail by not running or dropping out.
He won't do that.
Or
he will not do that.
Or he is convicted and is forced to drop out.
He can run from a jail cell.
He can, but it seems unwise.
Eugene.
I would like to think that the donations will dry up and he won't be able to access it. Like I
bet the donations will pour in. I bet.
Yeah, but if he doesn't have a debit card in prison,
that doesn't matter.
Or Wi-Fi.
That doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Chris LaSavita can spend all the crazy money he wants.
Yeah,
right.
So, but I think Haley's head right now is either I'm setting myself up for 2028 or for
vice president.
Yeah, no, not the way she's talking.
Oh, yes. No,
but he won't pick her if she's being this mean to him.
He's picking Nancy Mace. We all get that. We all know it. Let's move on.
Yeah, that's true. And she's just got a divorce.
Melania's probably like, yeah, pick her.
She broke up with her fiance.
Oh, that was it.
It's different than a divorce.
Oh.
Practically a divorce.
Yeah, no. Haley's looking down the road. She's hoping that either Trump, I don't know, vaporizes, or she can step in a post-Trump era, not realizing there won't be a post-Trump era if Trump wins.
Yeah, I was going to say that she's looking down the road, but if Trump comes back, there is no road.
No, there's no road. She needs to vote for Joe Biden if she wants to run for president in 2028.
It won't happen. And if she votes for Joe Biden, she will lose all credibility with the Republican Party. We saw this with Ted Cruz. He called Ted Cruz's wife ugly, and he was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I should campaign for you." We saw this with Rubio. He called him short, and he made fun of.
I forgot about him.
We all do. We all do. In fact, every time I walk into a room or sit down, I got to make sure he's not around or underfoot. And all those other guys who he just crushed in the primary and made fun of them personally and politically. They're all like, yeah, I guess we should stand up to him. Look at Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham at one point was like, look, you are not fit to serve. And now he's like, I am ride or die Trump. You should see Lindsey Graham's back tattoo of Trump. And while that is funny, there is an excellent
there's an excellent book out there by Will Salatin called The Corruption of Lindsey Graham, where he goes in chapter and verse about how this happened. And it is basically a case study in the corruption of the entire Republican Party.
Oh my gosh, this sounds great.
Yeah, it's really very good. The only thing I think Salatin doesn't talk about, because he doesn't really talk about the pre-Trump era, is that for a lot of Republicans, politics became utterly personal and utterly devoid of any sort of policy or logic after President Obama was reelected in 2012. They went into despair. They went into despair. They went into heartbreak, and they focused all their anger on him rather than whatever policies he was presenting. So that when Obama in 2015 actually came over to the freer trade side, away from the protectionism of his first term, the Republican Party flipped in opposition to him. That was the sign that the party was not saying, I oppose Barack Obama because of these policies. They were now saying, I oppose these policies because of Barack Obama. And when a party becomes that personalized in its opposition, it can become that personalized in its support. That was something Donald Trump and his minions saw. They took advantage of it, and the rest is tragedy.
Yep, pretty much true. Pretty much true.
Spot on. I gotta get this book. DM me the name of that book, or say it again slowly so I can write it down.
It's from Will Salatin, Saletan, and I'm assuming you're not going to be the only one who wants this data. It's called The Corruption of Lindsey Graham.
And we can buy it through your site, or you're going to be selling copies, or you get a cut of this, I assume,
no,
right?
I don't. No.
Do you know Will? Is he a friend of yours?
No.
I hope he is now.
Yeah, Will, seriously, Will, call us.
Will, if you're listening, come on the show. We've been plugging your books. Christ, man, throw us a bone. All we do is prop you up. Gee whiz, man.
All right. Well, we are coming to the end of our time here now, and as let's the holiday gift giving season is in full swing, and so if you were going to buy a cameo from George Santos, who would you buy it for, and what would you want him to say? DJ, I'll let you go first.
I would want a cameo for my first wife, wishing her a happy new year in her most recent persona, which probably is the only one that did more of a 180 from who she actually was than George Santos himself.
Outstanding. Nice. Greg, what about you?
So this is from George Santos?
Yeah, you buy a cameo from George Santos, and he gives a personalized message to the person of your choice. John Fetterman had Santos do one for Bob Menendez.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I would have George Santos apologize to the insurance company that robotic team burned down, because he'd be like, "Sorry, we burned down your insurance company, but these robotics kids are rad." And then I would spend the extra money and send one to those robotic kids. I've got to find these.
The imaginary robotics team.
Imaginary robotics team, and say things like, "Hey, fire is bad, kids, but you're on fire." And I'd have him say, like George Santos would say, like, "Fire," like he does, and then put on Gucci sunglasses or whatever, because they're so bright, but like they're futures.
Gotta wear shades.
Yeah.
So, I think I would send it to my my cosmetic dermatologist, saying, like, you do better work than my guy. But George Santos pointing to his face, which is really his eyebrows are too high. He doesn't look great. So just to remind my lady, my injector, like, you're the best out there. Look at how bad all the others are. This
is not quality. Look at me. I'm George Santos.
Yeah, no, I look ridiculous. Well, okay, because keep in mind, one of the doctors, I believe, is going to a plastic surgeon. It's for Botox. One of the doctors that he spent money on, campaign funds, was later lost his license for botched penile implants.
I heard about that. They went to a trial, but there was a hung jury.
Oh, for the love of God.
Thank you. Thank you.
And there's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere to go but down, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I do believe our podcast episode has reached its climax.
I'm glad I could make at least one dirty joke on this show.
Okay.
I apologize, Sally.
So thank you all for listening. Or we're very sorry that
we're very sorry
that you had to listen up until this point. If you enjoy what we do here, please follow us on Twitter at MPU Podcast or on Instagram at MPU Fan Club. Don't forget to share your link with a content warning on your Facebook timeline so your friends can discover us as well. You can share it on Threads. You can share it on the Hell site, formerly known as Twitter. It's actually probably most appropriate on OnlyFans tonight. So before we leave, Greg, what Christmas carols are you going to be playing at concerts this coming week?
I just had this to say. I hate Christmas carols more than anything, and I just did a sleigh ride like for the millionth time in a row. I honestly, if I don't play another Christmas carol for another 12 months, I'd be happy. But I've got like 3 more gigs at least. So if you need any Christmas carols, please call me. I'm in the mood, but no.
Yeah. But next year, you can start the war on Christmas next year.
Oh, that's the only thing I support on Fox right now.
Well, Greg,